Are you looking for the very best products to protect your digital privacy? Well, Silent Pocket has everything you need to mind the grid with their patented product line of Faraday bags and wallets. Visit silentpocket.com today and receive 15% off your order with discount code SHAREDSECURITY.
Over 90% of individuals show risky behavior in handling potential phishing messages, according to ClickArmor's free CanIBeFished.com self-assessment. This engaging coronavirus edition of CanIBeFished.com can help identify your team's total vulnerability to phishing attacks that exploit the pandemic situation. So test your own vulnerability to phishing attacks for free now at CanIBeFished.com.
Joining me on the show this week is fellow podcaster Andy Murphy, host of the Secure Dad podcast. Welcome to the show, Andy.
Thank you, Tom, so much for having me. It was great having you on my show. And by the way, congratulations on doing this for 10 years. I know you just reached a milestone of 100 episodes.
I did.
So, I'm at like 88 right now. So
you're almost there.
I'm a little behind you. You've got a few more years of podcasting under your belt, more than I do. So, but yeah, thank you for what you're doing. And I appreciate it as somebody who doesn't quite always understand the technical aspects of what you guys talk about on the show. You dumb it down for people like me, and I appreciate that.
Well, and the feeling is mutual. I want to say that I really enjoy your podcast, and I've personally learned a lot about home and family safety from your show. And I also think it's really cool that our podcasts actually cross over on privacy and cybersecurity topics. It's actually, really relevant.
Yeah, absolutely it is, because without your show, I wouldn't be doing half the stuff I'm doing. And I really, I like the episode you did about the First Amendment and protesting and all the stuff that you needed to do to your phone, and which was even, take protesting out of that. All of that stuff was important to know and understand. Like, I really found it was great to understand that if you have facial recognition on your phone, somebody could literally just hold that up to your face and unlock your phone. So going and doing the old school type your code into the screen was a really good, shift in mindset for me to understand, oh, wait, that is something that could happen. So,
Yep.
Awesome stuff, man.
Yeah, and it shows that, even the latest technology that's built into all of our devices isn't always the best solution for something, for a problem.
Yes, I completely agree. Sometimes old school is better.
Well, I great job on your show as well. It's a podcast that I always recommend to friends and family and others that are looking for a good show just on home and family safety. So, one of my big questions is why did you start the Secure Dad podcast?
Well, I actually started out. This is funny. In 2016, I wanted to do something different with my life. And so that was kind of where I felt like, God was leading me. So I started writing children's books, and I absolutely failed at it. And what everybody was saying is, hey, if you want to be taken seriously as an author, you've got to start a blog. And I'm like, I don't want to start a blog about being a failed children's book author. That's going to be like depressing. Nobody is going to want to see that. So I was listening to Michael Hyatt, and he was saying, what is one thing that you could talk about every day, all day, and never get tired of it? And for me, that was at the time home security and situational awareness, because that is the way my mind works. Way back in 1999, I was in high school. And even though I was thousands of miles away from Colorado, the shooting at Columbine had a huge impact on me, because I went to school the very next day, April 21st, 1999, and I was sitting in my homeroom class, and I looked around and I thought to myself, any one of these kids could pull out a gun from their backpack and start shooting. And that was a huge revelation to me. In my town where I was living at the time, we had already had a school shooting some years earlier, but it was from a crazy individual who came from the outside, who lived nearby, and he came into the school and started shooting. And so it was this huge wake-up call to understand that, one, my safety was my own responsibility, but two, a fellow classmate could be the threat. And that was something I had never considered before. So way back then, I understood that my safety was my own responsibility. I started thinking that way and acting that way. My friends would make fun of me for, saying some of the things that I would about, hey, let's not go this way. Let's try going this way, that sort of stuff. And so all of that kind of culminated in 2016 to where, hey, let's start a blog that can help make families live safer, happier lives. And I have absolutely loved every minute of it since.
That's really cool. I think, your background, my background, I mean, just, being in cybersecurity, I think all of us in at least my industry have a little bit of paranoia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have, some similar stories, even my entire life, I was in the Marine Corps and, then going into cybersecurity, I've always had that mindset of, okay, where are the exits in this restaurant?
Yes,
and,
yes.
and like, being a little more paranoid about things just because I've had more exposure to, security situations. And I've always just had that kind of second sense, if you will, of my own personal safety.
Right. Yeah. I'll go into restaurants and, I have a mental map of just about everywhere I've been, even though I may not have been there for years. I remember because they don't move fire exits. That's
No,
not something that changes when you go into like a restaurant after a while. So you just kind of remember those things and keep an eye out. And even when you go into new environments, I'm sure you've done this because you have such a great mental file folder of all the places you've been, you can look at a new place and kind of guess where things are and how things work.
exactly. But over the years, you've released a ton of great content and covered all kinds of different security topics. So everything from family safety, home security, self-defense, and even shows about recent events like protecting your family vehicle from a riot, which I thought was a great show, by the way,
Yeah.
and defending against COVID-19, of course, with the pandemic. What has been the one topic or show that's been truly memorable for you?
Well, you kind of hit on it there a second ago, and that was talking about how to get out of a riot situation if you're just all of a sudden swallowed up by one. When I first started this, I was like, man, I'm going to run out of ideas after like 6 months. What am I going to do? And, Tom, every week, just like you and your show, there is something new. There is
Always.
something that happens that is absolutely relevant that you can give a good, grounded perspective on. And so I was actually in the Emergence Disrupt group, which is run by Yusuf Badu, a fellow Marine of yours. And he, in his group, talked about, what would you do if you were out and all of a sudden your family were surrounded by a group of protesters? And there was actually a lot of protests in the capital city of my state, which is like 20 minutes from where I live. And I started thinking,
Wow.
man, what would I do
Hmm.
if this happened? Because it's, while protests are scheduled, riots are not.
That's
And
right.
so you can say, oh, hey, this group is going to go down to the state house and they're going to protest starting at noon. And those people are all well and good to have their protests and exercise that First Amendment right, like you talked about on your show. But it's these outside agitators who come in with the intent of disrupting and causing chaos that really sets off a firestorm. And so, walking through that scenario, what would I do? How would I get through all of that? And you make one plan and you think, okay, that might be good. Well, how do I make it better? And 3 and 4 more times, how do I do this? And what happens if this goes wrong? And I'll say, you can make all the plans you want to in the world, none of them are going to actually happen in reality like your situation you're going to be in. So thinking about it is good, but also don't be frustrated when things don't go exactly
Right.
like you war gamed it in your head. You've got to be able to be flexible and build on what you have done. So yeah, I never thought I'd do a show about how to protect your family car for a riot, but there you go. Also a global pandemic. Didn't necessarily think
Nope.
that was going to happen either. So those are the memorable ones. Those are the ones that are like, I never thought I'd be here saying this.
Yes. That's a great point about kind of, changing strategy and no matter how much you train and no matter how much you go over situations in your head. And in the Marine Corps, I think we used to call it Semper Gumby, always flexible.
Yeah, I like that. That's good.
And now a word from our sponsor, Edgewise Networks. The biggest problem in security that remains unsolved are flat networks in cloud and data centers, with unprotected attack paths that allow threats to move laterally to cause data breaches. But microsegmentation using network addresses is complicated and takes too much time. But there's a better approach: Edgewise Zero Trust Auto Segmentation. Edgewise is impossibly simple microsegmentation, delivering results immediately with a security outcome that's provable. At the core of Edgewise Auto Segmentation is Zero Trust Identity, which allows workloads to communicate only after their software identity has been verified. Malicious or unimproved software is no longer allowed to communicate. Identity-based protection provides more coverage with fewer policies to make Edgewise simple to deploy and manage. No changes to the application or network are required. One solution protects virtual machines and containers in the cloud and on-premises. To stop lateral threat movement and prevent breaches, visit edgewise.net for a demo and to see results within minutes.
Well, one of my favorite episodes of your show was about the crime that we create, where you talked about how we may do a lot of things which leave us a target for theft and crime. And so given these crazy times with a pandemic and riots and all these things, why is this something that we all need to be aware of?
Well, I was walking my dog just the other day. And by the way, for those of you who may not have listened to that show, the crime that we create is all these elements that we do in our lives that could potentially tip off somebody to why we're important, why what we have is valuable, why we are valuable. My grandfather was a sheriff, and he always told my mom that there was this thing that bad guys did around Christmas. And this is like back in the 60s and 70s. They would drive around neighborhoods and they would wait for trash pickup day after Christmas, because that's when everybody put all the big boxes out. Like if you got a new TV or a new Hot Wheels set, a new firearm, a new lawn equipment, whatever it is, people set that out by the trash can. And that is an advertisement for what you have in your home. And so bad guys go around and they just make a little map of, okay, this house has a new TV. This guy just got new power tools. We can pawn all that stuff real easy. There's a shotgun box here that can be pawned too. So we'll come back, when we think that they're not here. And that's a crime that you have created for yourself. And you may not even realize you're just taking out your trash. Who thinks about stuff like that? But that is something that my family has practiced forever. And it's one of the things that I'm happy to have the show and to do that and be able to share that sort of stuff. Right now, what I'm seeing is a lot of folks are putting out signs in their yard. I don't know if this is just happening around my area. Maybe it's happening around yours too, Tom, saying like, there's a high school graduate in this house, or there is, somebody who's graduated from pre-K living in this house, which I was like, okay, all right. I didn't do that for my kid. Maybe I'm not that great of a dad. I don't know. But one, and this was in the book that just enraged me, was my neighbor down the road, still lives there, put out a sign that said, a local high school cheerleader lives here, and her picture is on the sign. That's just not something. You don't need to advertise your children. I mean, one, you have a teenage daughter, so as you're fond of saying, your threat assessment is a little different when you have a teenage daughter. Unfortunately, you've got people targeting them for reasons that we don't really want to talk about, but you can guess why. And you don't want to say that they live here because they can see them coming and going and all that sort of stuff. And you add the fact that they're a cheerleader on top of that. That's just a whole lot of stuff for a predator to understand and know about your family that he would have never known just driving by your house. So while we have all these situations of riots and we've got a pandemic, people are getting desperate, you don't want to advertise what you have in your house. You don't want to advertise what you do in your job, because somebody may try to break into your home thinking you have a lot of money, take you to an ATM while they hold your family hostage in the house and that sort of stuff. So just try to have that gray man mentality when it comes to understanding how what you do is perceived by others.
Yeah, that's a great point about the signs. I see that a lot in my neighborhood too, and it's for a good reason, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
sure,
people
sure.
they're proud of their kids. They want to, I think seniors this year in high school really got a bum deal, right?
They did,
Because
absolutely.
they've worked really hard for those 4 years, and some of them didn't even have a graduation ceremony. But I do see, I know there's some neighbors that put signs up too with the kids' first name and last name.
Oh yeah,
So you're driving by and it's like, wow, I didn't know that was the last name of that family. That's interesting.
Right. You know what? You bring up this great point, and I meant to take a picture of this. Sometimes I feel bad kind of taking pictures of my neighbors and using them as examples, but there's a house right at the beginning of my neighborhood. It was their daughter's 10th birthday. They put those big letter signs out that you see, not just like the political signs. It's like the ones that you can custom get somewhere online. And it's like her full name, like you said, but then an outline of a gymnast and like a horse. So like now I know your daughter's
Wow.
age. I know her name. I know that she likes horses and that she is a gymnast. Well, if I am a sexual predator or something, I have a lot of information that I can strike up a conversation with your daughter about and make her think that I am a friend of their parents. Hey, why don't you, let me in or something like that. And that's just a lot of information you don't want to give out.
Yep. And kind of on that topic, I think many of our listeners that have a family resonate with one of the themes of your show, which is every parent is a protector. What does that statement mean to you, Andy?
What it means is kind of like the ideal parent. I recently did a show with Milspec Mom, and she was very quick to bring up that not every parent is a protector. And I understand that. There are bad people in the world who have kids and they don't treat their kids well. They don't care about them. That's a really depressing topic that we don't want to talk about. But for those of us who actually accept the role as a parent, we have this innate sense in all of us to protect our children. I mean, and this comes back from generations of humans. I mean, we can see this in the animal world too. As parents, it's our job to raise our children, feed them, and make sure that they survive. So if you can embrace this role as a protector, it's going to open up so many more opportunities for you to live a safer, happier life. When we talked about having this level of paranoia or whatever, we joke about it, but when we understand that our safety is our top priority, we need to really consider that on all the stuff that we do, just like going to the grocery store, going on vacation, whatever it is. So when you're talking about every parent is a protector, you really need to be able to embrace that role, understand what it means. What are you willing to do to protect your children? What do you need to tell your children about protecting themselves when you're not around? The role of the parent protector is always evolving, it's always changing, and it never stops. You may be 80 years old and your kids are 60 and you are still their protector. And that never goes away.
So true. So true. They'll always be your kids no matter what happens.
Right.
No matter how old you get.
Right. My dad tells me that all the time. I'm like, Dad, leave me. He's like, no, you need to do this. Okay. All right, fine. Yeah, I see it. Double standard. Got it.
So what's the one thing that we should all know about family safety and security?
One of the things that I'm always like to talk about is you've got to change your mindset. A lot of people walk through this world completely oblivious to what is going on around them. There's a lot of people who walk around with their faces in their phones, or I see women going in and out of Target stores and they don't want to carry their purse. So they just have the one purse that has the keys on it. It's just their wallet, excuse me. It's just a wallet in their hand with their keys hanging off of it. Anybody can run out, like a 10-year-old kid can run up and then snatch that out of your hand and run off. So in order to really maximize your safety. I mean, I could sit here and tell you, oh, lock your doors, make sure that, your doors are locked when you're sitting in a parking lot in a car. I can tell you all these tips, but until you change your mindset, nothing is really going to change. You have to embrace that you could be the victim of a crime. You have to be able to embrace that somebody could want to hurt you, even though you don't know who they are, even though you're a great, good, law-abiding citizen. There are still people out there who might want to hurt you. And if you can change the way you think, if you can adopt that secure mindset, everything else will make sense. And you will start to just intrinsically act differently. You will act safely. You will pass that stuff on to your kids by just simply being an example of what to do. And one of my favorite things to talk about with mindset, and I know you embrace this one too, is the adversarial mindset, which is when you think like a bad guy. Now, this doesn't make you a bad guy, but you think about it like, how would somebody break into my house? That's one of the things that I tell people all the time. Go outside tonight when it is dark and stand and look at your house and think, how would I break into this house? You know, you kind of have to separate yourself from the fact that you are the homeowner, but like, really, how would somebody get into your house? How would you break into your own home? And when you do that, when you see that, you start to reverse engineer all your findings so that you can make your home and your family a harder target for a bad guy. So they'll just give up and move on.
This is really great stuff, Andy. And, tell us how our listeners can learn more about you and the Secure Dad podcast.
Sure. You can find me at thesecuredad.com. You can also find me on social media at Instagram at thesecuredad. One thing that I am doing right now that I'm really proud of is I'm doing something called the Secure Dad 5-Day Challenge. And what this is I will send you one email a day for 5 days. And our goal is to make your home safer than it was 5 days ago. And one of the things that I actually talk about is the adversarial mindset. Plus, I give you a checklist of things that you can do to make sure that your home is safer. So if you go to thesecuredad.com, you'll see the 5-day challenge banner there up at the top of the screen. Click on it. It's absolutely free.
Excellent. And we'll have those links in our show notes as well. So if you didn't get that off of the video or the audio podcasts, we'll have all that for you on our website as well. But Andy, this has been great. I really appreciate you having you on the show and all of your insights, and good luck with the podcast. And as you reach that milestone episode 100, we'll be here to help promote that as well, and all the great things that you're doing. So
I appreciate it, Tom. Thanks for the opportunity to be here today. And, to you and all your folks at the Shared Security Podcast, keep up the good work. It is appreciated.
Well, thank you very much. And enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, buddy. You too.